Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Faith, Lies, and Confusion. I am Godless Reggie, your host. This week's episode is titled Hausa Animism, also known as Bori, and it's another look into African spirituality, as I promised last week. This is just another episode of that. So, this particular religion, I've heard Hausa before. Um, it's West African. I thought that it was probably South or Central African just from hearing the word. I don't know why I really actually thought that because I really don't understand how the languages work quite yet. But I just thought that that was that type of word. But come to find out, it's a West African tradition. So that's quite interesting, in my opinion, because it correlates with my people. I know that I'm a descendant of West African. So hopefully this is informative to anyone that's watching. How you doing, WG666? As always, your support is very much needed. So let me do a little bit of reading about this particular religion. Excuse me. I'm gonna go with Wikipedia this time. Okay, give me a second. Actually, I'm gonna go with ChatGPT at first, anyway. So give me one moment. Hopefully, everyone can read this. But Hausa Animism refers to the traditional religious beliefs and spiritual practices of the Hausa people before and in some cases alongside the spread of Islam and Christianity. It involves a system of indigenous African spirituality centered on nature worship, ancestral spirits, and local deities. Here's a breakdown of its key elements. Before the widespread adoption of Islam, starting around the 11th century, the Hausa people practiced a polytheistic religion with a rich spiritual cosmology. Spirits and deities, Ishkokis. The Hausa believed in various spirituals called Ishokis, singular Iska, which inhabit natural elements like forests, rocks, rivers, and air. Iskoki could be benevolent or malevolent, and people perform rituals and offer sacrifices to appease them. The Bori cult. One of the most prominent aspects of Hausa animism is the Bori or Bori cult, which involves spirit possession and trance rituals. Bori spirits are believed to take over the bodies of ritual specialists, often women, during ceremonies. These specialties are called Yan Bori. Each spirit in the Bori pantheon has a specific name, behavior, and history. Ancestral worship. Ancestors were honored and sometimes deified. Their blessings were sought for protection, fertility, and success. Nature worship. Sacred groves, rivers, and stones were important sites for rituals. Certain animals and natural events were interpreted as spiritual signs. Divination and healing. Diviners and and traditional healers, often part of the Bori cult, use spiritual guidance to diagnose illness and misfortune. Healing evoked herbal remedies, chants, and offerings. Give me one second. I forgot to start my stream on Instagram. Okay, so now I started. Coexistence with Islam. Though Islam became dominant in Hausa land, especially after the Fulani Jihad in the 19th century, elements of animism still persist. These blendings is known as syncretism. Even today, in some rural areas, people may observe Islamic practices alongside Bori rituals. Some Muslims view Bori as heretical, while others see it as part of a Hausa cultural identity. Okay, I'm gonna stop right there. Okay, this is just another situation. It sounds very similar to what I've been learning about Christianity, how it vilifies African spiritualities. I was aware that Islam does that as well. I just hadn't heard of an exact situation. But now that I'm hearing it, I can understand why they would do it because, I mean, if they don't do it, no one's not going to believe their shit. I'm not justifying it. It is fucked up. Jihads consist of murder of anyone who is not going to be a believer. But I still see how the synchronism, right? Even though it explains it, but I can see that it still incorporates some of their old traditions. I would like to see it firsthand especially in regions like Nigeria. I'm sure I'm going to read about that, um, where Islam and one part of it is very, very dominant. I want to know if they incorporate, or wherever, it doesn't necessarily have to be there, if they incorporate or how they incorporate their traditional uh, spiritualities. So I'm going to read a little bit more so I can make sense to myself here. Okay, let me move down. Modern day legacy. Bori rituals are still practiced in Niger, northern Nigeria, and parts of West Africa, as I suspected, though often underground or as cultural performance rather than religious devotion. Hausa animism remains a key part of the spiritual heritage and is studied by anthropology and historians of religion. Further reading Andeline Mass, I'm not going to try to butcher that, an anthropologist who has written extensively on Bori and Niger. House of Women in the 20th century explores the role of women in spiritual and religious life. Okay, so I'm gonna play a little video here to give firsthand information, so it can make sense to you, to all my viewers. Give me 1 second here. And again, thank you everybody for stopping by, taking your time out of your evening to watch this. I apologize if it starts skipping. It's not a long video.
Ancient history. Before the widespread adoption of Islam and Christianity, they followed their own indigenous religious beliefs, which revolved around nature worship, spirits, and ancestral veneration. But today, those beliefs are nearly extinct. So, what happened? How did an entire religious system disappear? In this video, we will explore the factors that led to the decline of Hausa traditional religion and the rise of new faiths. Let's dive into history. For centuries, the Hausa people practiced a belief system known as Maguzansi or Bori. This was a form of spiritualism where people worshipped a supreme god called Ubangiji, but also believed in spirits known as Iskoki, which could influence their lives. Priests, known as Malamai or Bori mediums, played an important role in society. They communicated with the spirits, performed rituals, and led ceremonies to appease supernatural forefathers, believing that they could protect and guide the living. But despite its deep roots, this belief system would face immense pressure from outside in Hausa land through trade. In the 11th century, Muslim merchants from North Africa and the also ideas, including religion. At first, Islam was embraced only by the ruling elite and traders, while some traditional practices for economic advantages, but it didn't beliefs overnight. Instead, a form of religious syncretism emerged, where Islam and Bori coexisted. Some people prayed in mosques but still sought guidance from Bori priests and spirits. However, this balance would not last forever. In the early 19th century, a major religious and political revolution changed everything. Usman Dan Fodio, a Fulani Islamic scholar, launched a jihad, holy war, to purify Islam in the region. He criticized Hausas for mixing Islam with traditional beliefs and accused them of known as wars kingdoms. The jihad led to the creation of the Sokoto Caliph, one of the largest Islamic states in Africa. Under this new system, Islamic law goal of spreading Christianity, but unlike in southern Nigeria, they had limited success in Hausa land due to the indigenous religious practices were often abandoned them. By the time Nigeria gained independence in 1960, Hausa traditional religion had almost completely disappeared. Today, the Hausa are predominantly Muslim with a small Christian minority. Traditional religious practices largely faded, but traces of Bori still exist. Elements of the old religion survive cultural expressions, music, dance. Famous Bori ritual, one core part of the ritual, mostly in a performance rather than a sudden event. It was a gradual process shaped by trade, conquest, and colonialism. Islam and Christianity brought new ways of thinking, and over time, the old spiritual traditions faded into history. But history is never truly lost. The echoes of Hausa traditional religion still resonate in language, customs, and cultural heritage. If you found this video interesting, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Untold Africa for more deep dives into history.
Okay. That's interesting to know that Islam actually was in Nigeria first. I should have knew that because the Mali Empire is not that far, but as the guy was stating, that you would have to cross the Sahara to do that. But it's interesting about the Sharia law, even though I am aware of some of that situation because of personal friends that are from the area that have spoke to me about it. But I feel like that was a pretty good explanation as to why this is not something that's commonly spoke about so much. I still feel like it should be spoke about more because we always hear about the other two religions that I've potted about that are in the area as well. More than anything, we hear more about the Yoruba, the Igbo language. Excuse me, religions more than we hear about the Hausa animism. I have heard that animism is the first religion on earth. I don't know. I doubt if it's Hausa animism, but I'll dig into that deeper on another date. But it's definitely interesting to learn about it. I'm gonna read a little bit more about it. Give me 1 second. I'm sorry about the video skipping. Okay. Okay, so this is via Wikipedia. Hausa Animism, Magozansi, or Bori is a pre-Islamic traditional religion of the Hausa people of West Africa that involves magic and spirit possession. While only a part of the Hausa people, mostly within the urban elites, converted to Islam before the end of the 18th century, most of the adherents of the religion did the same between the jihad started by the Islamic reformer Usman Dan Fodio around 1800 and the middle of the 20th century, while small minority converted to Christianity. Religious affiliation to this traditional religion, is virtually non-existent at the beginning of the 21st century. However, Hausa animism and Islam along Hausa people have coexisted for centuries, and some practices related to animism carry on locally. When discussing Bori, there is a distinction to be made between the beliefs of the Manguzawa, which consists of pagan or heavily pagan influenced Hausa religion, the general belief in spirits and animism that persist even among Muslim Hausa, and the possession trance group that puts on dance performance and ceremonies. As just was previously mentioned in that video, terminology, Bori is a Hausa noun, meaning the spiritual force that resides in physical things and is related to the word for local distilled alcohol, borosas, as well as the practice of medicine, boka. The Bori religion is both an institution to control these forces and the performance of adorcism, as opposed to exorcism, ritual, dance, and music by which these spirits are controlled and by which illness is healed. Spirits are called Bori, Iska, or Ajat. Iska has a non-Muslim connotation, so many Muslim Hausa prefer to use the word alajan, which comes from the Arabic word jinn, which is quite funny. Possessing spirits in the possession trance group are called spirits on your head. Possession trance groups members are called Yan Bori, children of the Bori, Dan Bori, son of the Bori, or Yar Bori, daughter of the Bori. Doki, which is horse for male devotees, and Gadia, mare for female devotees. Attendants who help the Yan Bori but don't trance are called Masu, Hiwo, herders or grooms, and help them get dressed and keep the spectator safe. Musicians may generally be called Moraka, though more specific terms exist. Female musicians are called Zabayowi. A Mawaki is a vocalist. Mabushi is a wind instrument player. A Makati is a drummer. The female chorus at Bori events is called the Yan Korari, whether they are professional musicians or not. Pre-Islamic Hausa land. According to Abdullah He Smith, the high god of Hausa Animism was called Abanjihi, and spirits among people Oskoki, which communities sought to maintain good relations with. Rituals were led by priests, Bokaye, family heads, and on occasion, the Sakri, which is a king. An aspect of the traditional Maguzawa Hausa people religious traditions, Bori became a state religion led by ruling class priestesses among some of the late pre-colonial Hausa kingdoms. When Islam started making inroads into Hausa land in the 11th century, certain aspects of the religion, such as idol worship, were driven underground. The cult of Sumbabari in the then Sultanate of Kanu and many other similar Bori cults were suppressed, but Bori survived in spirit possession cults by integrating some aspects of Islam. The Bori spirit possession priestesses maintained nominal influence over the sultanates that replaced the earlier animist kingdoms. Priestesses communed with spirits through ecstatic dance, ritual, hopping to guide and maintain the state's ruling houses. A corps of Bori priestesses and their helpers was led by royal priestesses titled the Enin, or Mother of All of Us. The Enin the Ina oversaw this network, which was not only responsible for protecting society from malevolent forces through possession dances, but which provided healing and divination through the kingdom. So pre-Islamic and contemporary practices, history. Muslim scholars in the early 19th century disapproved of the hybrid religion practices in royal courts. Zealous Muslims were to use this hybridization as an excuse to overthrow the sultanates and from the Sokoto Caliphate. With the birth of the Caliphate, Bori practices were particularly suppressed in Fula courts. Bori possession rituals survived in the Hausa refugee states such as Kani and Doganduchi in what is today southern Niger, and in some rural areas in Nigerian Hausa land. The powerful adversary roles of women exemplified in the Bori priestesses either disappeared or were transferred to Muslim women in scholarly, educational, and community leadership roles. British and French colonialism, though, offered little space for women in official hierarchies and indirect role, and the former roles, like the Bori, for women in governance largely disappeared by the mid-20th century. In modern Muslim Hausa land, Bori rituals survived in some places, assimilated into Sekrentekit, I can't pronounce that word, the ranks of the pre-Muslim Baka Baku spirits in the Maguzasi have been augmented over time with Muslim spirits, Farfaru, and spirits of representing other ethnic groups, even those of the European colonialists. The healing and luck aspects of the performance of Bori members, almost exclusively women, provide new social roles for the rituals and practitioners. Bori ritual societies separated from governing structures provide a powerful corporate identity for the women who belong to them, though the practice of traditional healing, as well as though the performance of Bori festivals like the Gurkha initiation ritual. The possession trance group is only one aspect of the Maguwazu religious practice, and it's the major one that has held on to Muslim communities. Okay, that's enough reading for now. All those words, I'm tired of fighting with them. So I'm gonna play another video, read a little bit more, and I'm gonna get out of here. Thank all y'all for stopping by. Give me a second. I'm gonna try to make this one short too. Okay, so before I play this, I can see some of it. It's going to be a performance, so it may be a little bit loud. I'm just warning you before I play it. I'm just glad that that particular video wasn't skipping like normally. Like every time I try to play something off of YouTube, it tends to fucking skip, but that one didn't. So that's a plus. But again, that was interesting to see them doing their traditional dances. I wonder how much of that is influenced by Islam. I wonder how much of that is influenced from seeing Christianity. I wonder how much of that is seeing people from the United States, catch the Holy Ghost, because I'm under the impression that they see a lot of that shit on TV. So I just wonder. And at this point, there would be no way of verifying it one way or the other, because as I was reading, and as was stated earlier several times, that the religion is intertwined with Islam and has been for so many years that it's a part of their culture at this point, right? If you're talking about from the 11th century on to be integrated with the traditional religion, and they're still performing some of the practices, but they believe in Allah, there's probably no way of distinguishing one from the other. I can say this: I've never seen Muslims from Arab countries, do anything like that. I've never seen that. They don't dress like that. They don't perform like that. They don't do nothing like that. So I can see the African tradition clearly, the colors and things like that, but they're still Muslim. So I'm not sure. I'm gonna read a little bit more. I've been here 28 minutes, and I'm gonna get out of here. Okay. I'm gonna try to read something that I didn't read before. Okay, so historic and social context. Pre-Islamic origins, Hausa Animism was the dominant traditional religion before the arrival of Islam. Islamization, Islam brought by traders, became the prominent religion over centuries, as we stated, especially with the Jihad of Usman dan Fodio in the early 19th century. As I mentioned earlier, synchronism, many Hausa communities blend animism traditions with Islam, viewing them as complementary, with some Islamic scholars allowing for coexistence of local practices. Marginalization, practitioners of Bori, particularly women, were often marginalized or relegated to oppressed groups with Hausa society. Persistence, despite the spread of Islam and Christianity, animist traditionists, especially the Bori cult, continue to exist in some ritual in urban areas, particularly among the Maguzawa, a group that maintain pre-Islamic benefits, social role. Bori rituals provide a corporate identity and a means of social and spiritual fulfillment for its practitioners. Often women, even in contemporary Muslim Hausaland. Okay, I'm gonna read some more. Okay, so a spiritual force. A Bori is the Hausa word for the spiritual forces that reside in physical things. The Bori religion is both the system for controlling these forces and the healing rituals associated with it, which I mentioned earlier. The spirit pantheon, known as the Oskaki, the regular Iska, or Algin, from the Arabic word jinn, includes a vast number of spirits with specific personalities, powers, and rituals. They can cause illness or bring good fortune and serve as intermediates between humans and the divine creator. Okay, so I touched on that earlier, and I'm going to speak about it now. I don't like that, because that's just another way of Islam trying to belittle or demonize African spiritualities. And the reason why I'm saying that is because what a jinn is basically the equivalent to a little demon that it can't really hurt you, but it can influence you to do things good or bad. So all of a sudden, their pantheon is jinns. I don't fucking like that. Moving along, spirit divisions. The spirits are divided into categories such as the wild bush spirits, the dahi, which are harder to control, and the more placid farm spirits, the gona. Later, under Islamic influence, spirits were often classified as white Muslims or black pagan. Oh, I really don't like that. Rituals and roles. Traditionally, rituals were led by priests. The Bukaye and some pre-colonial Hausa kingdoms were led by priestesses, who communicated with spirits through ecstatic dances. The highest ranking priestesses, also known as the Ina or Mother of all of us, Bori possession rituals. The most visible surviving element of Hausa Animism is the Bori possession cult, which continues in some areas in southern Niger and Nigeria. Adoricism, which I read earlier, and Bori ceremonies, music, and dance are used to invite spirits to possess a practitioner. This practice is a form of adoricism meant to control spirits and heal illness rather than in exorcism to expel them, the horses. Practitioners who become possessed are known as horses, as they are ridden by the spirits. Male practitioners are called doki, which is horse, and female practitioners go diha or mare. Performances. A Bori ceremony requires specific music to summon a particular spirit. During the trance, the possessed practitioners takes on the characteristics and personalities of the spirit they are hosting. Modern practitioners, members of Bori societies today, often provide traditional healing and divination and find a powerful sense of identity in the practice. The tradition is especially predominant among marginalized groups such as women, the poor, and LGBT individuals. Maguwaza, the last animist, who are they? The term Maguwaza refers to the segment of the Hausa population that resisted conversion to Islam and has preserved their traditional animistic beliefs. They have historically lived in rural forested areas, notably around Kano and Katsina. Survival of the practices. While most urban Hausa people converted to Islam over centuries, the Maguwaza maintained their ancestral religious practices, such as family rituals and spirit worship, which were distinct from the syncreted version of Islam practiced by the Hausa elites. Current status. Today, only a small number of Maguwaza remain. However, their steadfast adherence to the old way serves as a living reminder of pre-Islamic Hausa spirituality. Synchronism with Islam, historical fusion. When Islam arrived in Hausa land, it did not completely replace existing animistic beliefs. Instead, many traditional practices were integrated into Islamic life, a process known as syncretism. Islamic reform and suppression. In the 19th century, the Fulani-led jihad sought to purify Islam in the region and suppress syncretic practices and animism. The Bori cult was pushed to more remote areas or assimilated further into folk Islam. Continuing coexistence. Despite centuries of Islamic influence, the belief in the power of Skoki, the spirits, persists even among some modern Muslim Hausa, with many consulting Bori healers for issues of health and fortune. For instance, spirits from other ethnic groups, including European colonizers, were added to the Bori spirit pantheon over time. Okay, so overall, I would say I like the basic concept of the religion because it's African traditional religion. I don't believe it. I am not a believer in any religion, but it's interesting to know. I don't like some things about it. I don't like how their pantheon is referred to as jinn. That's some fucking bullshit. But who am I to judge? They took it on. It's really no different than a lot of Christian things that we see, right? How they incorporate pagan holidays or whatever. But I just don't like the belittling of what is yours. But hey, if they like it, I love it. Thank you, Ouija666, and everyone else who stopped by. From the beginning, I knew this was going to be a short episode because it doesn't really go into a lot of details about the religion because I think it's been watered down so long from Islam that a lot of their traditions have been forgotten, and with that jihad, mostly erased. I'll be back next week, same day. I don't know what time yet, and I'm going to focus on African spiritualities, like I was saying last week. I don't know exactly which one I'm going to focus on or which one I'm going to discuss, but I'll figure it out when we get there. Again, thank you everybody for stopping by, taking your time out to come by Faith, Lies, and Confusions. I am Godless Reggie. Have a good evening.